Okay, we've spoken about taking the responsibility for your own game. Now, what does your own game mean? And I'm going to talk through that about a little bit here. What you can see here is that I'm definitely not an artist, so we're clear on that. And I want to build a picture of what is your game that you need to take responsibility for. I'm going to break it up into three parts. So first of all, it's who you are as a person away from the cricket field. I think too many cricketers, particularly professional cricketers, fall into the trap of defining who they are by their ability to hit the cricket ball or how well they bowl a cricket ball. No one put it better than Sachin Tendulkar, who speaks about he needed to make sure that he was a good person because people are going to remember who he is as a person long after they've forgotten his cricket statistics or who he got runs against. So being a cricketer and being a person is two different things, and the danger is collapsing those. Because you can hit a cricket ball well or because you can't hit a cricket ball well does not say anything about who you are as a person. So important to keep working and developing your personality, your character, and you'll see in cricket teams, particularly selection, it's a very subjective thing. And I certainly, with the Rajasthan Royals, myself and Rahul Dravid and the rest of the team, when we look at a player's stats and we say, yes, he's probably good enough to be considered for the team, the next question, which is equally important, is he a good person? Is he someone who's going to add value to the Rajasthan Royals as a person, not just a cricketer? If the answer is no, he's not considered for selection, and I think more and more that's going to come into it. So are you someone who contributes and adds value to a team? Are you an energizer to your team? Or are you someone who can be labeled as selfish and maybe takes energy away from the team? If that's the case, you're probably going to struggle throughout your career. We've seen in examples more recently in England, where a player like Kevin Pietersen was actually kicked out of the team and actually had his contract, although he's probably one of the best cricketers in the world still at the moment. The England team wouldn't have him because they felt he was too disruptive. So who you are as a person is important, and we'll see later it actually ties directly into the mind, but more about that a little bit later. So now we arrive, and then this next piece is your cricket. And I've talked about the professional, or this is your sporting aspect, and there's some basic things here. Now the reason I'm going through this here is we're moving towards the mind and getting into the zone. If you've ever written an exam, or we've all written exams before, if you walk into the exam having studied the whole book, your mind is naturally, it's in a relaxed place, you're confident, you're comfortable, you've got the best possible chance of remembering that which you've learned. Compare that to if you walked into the exam or you've only studied a little bit, or you've spotted and there's some chapters you've left out. You're going to have some doubt, there's going to be some pressure, there's going to be some nerves. You're not in an ideal situation. Now it's the same with a cricket match. If you walk across the ropes and you've cut corners in your preparation, forget about any mental conditioning. You've cut corners, you're not going to get into a good mental space, so it's going to be much more difficult. If you've done everything, if you've studied the whole book, the chance of getting into the best mental space and being consistent over the medium to long term, it just increases depending on how much work you've done. So this is the book that we need to study before we cross the ropes. Your body. Is it fit? Is it strong? Can you trust your body if you're a bowler or batsman to be able to score 100 maybe on a Saturday and then come out and bat the next day and take it to 200? So we need to be looking after our body and being fit, eating right, sleeping right, drinking right. There's enough information out there. You need to take responsibility, not somebody else. Your skill, constantly upskilling yourself, that's why we go to practice. But when we go into a game, we need to have a plan. How am I going to play on this particular wicket against the bowlers that we're going to be facing under all the possible situations and conditions that might arise in a game? And am I prepared skill-wise to be able to manage that? And have I got a plan? Not everyone is perfect playing front foot, back foot, both sides of the wicket against all bowlers, but have you got a plan to be able to counter and cater for anything that you face in a game? And then have you prepared according to your plan? Now that's, for example, a place where a Sachin Tendulkar, I don't think in the 3 years that I was involved with the Indian cricket team that any batsman, including the young batsmen in the team, hit more balls in practice than a Sachin Tendulkar. He made sure his plan, his practice was perfect. It gave him the best possible chance of when he crossed the ropes, he knows he studied the whole book for the exam and his mind's in a good place. So important to get that right before we can even think about moving on to the mind. If you don't get this right, you will have doubt, you will have insecurity, you will have fear of failure, and you're not going to have access to the confidence that is available to you. So that is a critical foundation of working with a mind. How well are you preparing? Maybe you practice twice a week with a club or the school. Is that all you're doing? Or are you doing a little bit of extra and going out on your own and hitting extra balls? We cross the rope here, that dotted line. When we cross the rope, it's now about what happens in the mind. We've practiced, we've prepared. The mind can either be focused, and we're going to talk about that. That is ideal. We want to be focused, and for a batsman, ideally, what is the focus? We all know. Watch the ball. For a bowler, what is your focus when you're at the top of the mark? Different for different bowlers. but generally it's something to do with what ball am I going to bowl, or what areas am I going to hit, what action I'm going to put on the ball. That's all we need to be focusing on. Important, what am I in control of? As a batsman, I can only watch the ball. As a bowler, I can only hit an area. What happens after that is the result, and that's out of our hands. If we're lucky, we move forward into the zone. If we get all these things right, we get into the zone more and more. But particularly what I want to talk about now is most of us, when we make an error that ends up getting us out, or as a bowler we really miss our area by a long way, it's because our mind has been distracted. We're thinking about something we shouldn't be thinking about. That distracted mind influences our body, influences our skill, and we end up making a mistake. In fact, I've run workshops now with every single professional cricketer I've ever been involved with, which is over 200 international players, state or IPL players, and I've asked them all the same questions in the workshop, and what comes out is batsmen believe that between 80 and 90% of the time they get out, it's due to an error in their own thinking. So professionals, internationals, getting themselves out 80 to 90% of the times they get dismissed is because of a distracted mind. And the key to working with the mind is to be able to understand each of us have different distractions, have different things to work with, but I'm going to go now and talk about what are the things that distract us as batsmen and bowlers and cause, at least with internationals and professional players, 80 to 90% of errors. So I assume it'll be a similar very high percentage with school and club players and players on their way up to play at that level. And you don't have to wait to become a professional to start understanding the mind. Where does it need to be, and what does it look like when it's distracted?